With over 600 contestants and only 42 winners, this leaves a lot of people without a crown. So today I took it upon myself to make an entire cast of 20 people regarded to be the best to never win. But there are a few rules. Obviously, they can't have one. Each season can only have a maximum of 4 players, Survivor's rules as of recent, and personally I made it that each contestant had to play at least twice, just because they've at least been brought back for the return and still didn't win. And this cast is far harder to make than it may seem, because of the fact I can only cast 4 individuals from Game Changers, Heroes vs Villains, and so on. Play along with me at home and let me know in the comments what your cast is. Firstly, when you think of a video like this, you have to have Sari. She's entertaining, strategic, has a strong season-on-season narrative about being the person that got off the couch, and without a doubt has been screwed out of the game on multiple occasions. In spite of taking up a Micronesia, Heroes vs Villains, and Game Changer slot, she is absolutely deserving of the return on this cast. Then he also casted Rupert, fellow hero. Although his Blood vs Water game was a massive disappointment, he never would have been on Redemption Island that early if it wasn't for his wife being voted out. In his other 3 games, he's always made merge, and whether his goofy antics, pirate-like persona, or him straight up threatening to murder Fairplay, he's a household name, and in spite of not being a great strategist, deserves a spot for me. After that is Stephanie LaGrossa. And while yes, her Heroes vs Villains game was underwhelming, it would have been better had the Heroes tribe not been in desperate need for challenge strength, and when you have a dislocated shoulder competing against Goliath James Clement for who is more useful in challenges, then you might as well be writing your own name down on the parchment. But even nowadays, I feel her Palau game is iconic enough, even by modern day standards, to facilitate a 4th return. Beyond that is Malcolm Freeberg, who swung for the fences in Caramoan, was regarded as the person that should have won in his original season, Philippines. He, like many actual game changers, were purely ornamental on season 34, but regardless, he's a fun, lovable character that always improves seasons. The 3 Amigo tribal is iconic, and after his unfortunate elimination in Game Changers, it allows for a strong redemption arc. Wentworth will not count, but in this video she will, as she set a record-setting 9 votes blocked in Cambodia, which by itself is iconic enough of a moment to ensure her legendary status. In spite of a forgettable initial season, Kelly proved the importance of second chances with one of the strongest underdog stories the Survivor franchise has seen. Plus, despite being only one of 4 returnees, Kelly made it over halfway through the game and was the last captain standing. And then we move on to Ozzy, regarded as the pillar of the physical game on the show. But let's not forget he tricked Jason, creating one of the most iconic lines in Survivor history, and it's just a ing stick, and just refused to die in South Pacific, creating an endgame that was interesting to watch in spite of the steel pagonging. Sure, this return could ruin his legacy, but Game Changers already did that for the most part, and this return allows him to pick up the pizzas and grab the victory he's been craving. Sierra Easton is next up. Now her Blood vs Water game is essentially a meme at this point, but in spite of the fact she, say it with me now, voted out her own mom! There was also other moments she was involved in, such as surviving on a tribe with all men, and she caused the first modern day rock draw. In Cambodia, she showed she wasn't a one-shot wonder by playing a strong strategic game wherein she was only voted out because of an idol. Beyond that is perhaps one of the most popular Survivor YouTubers, with Rob Sesternino, who previously played on the Amazon, then returned for All-Stars. While his All-Star return was underwhelming, the deck was always going to be loaded against him due to how incredible his Amazon game was. In his initial game, he created the Pendulum strategy, where him and Matt swung to and fro between alliances and created a more dynamic plus aggressive form of gameplay that inspired future players. Now into a woman that could genuinely be Parvati 2.0 in Brenda. She's one of the first to utilise a 3-2-2 vote, a fantastic vote that now is used in almost every other season. In fact, the strategy was so good, it was used against her in Caramoan. but she was a flirty, strategic young woman who was constantly within the majority on her seasons, and I'd like to see her return now with a little more life experience. When you think of the best to never win, love him or hate him, you also have to add Russell. Seasons 19 to 26 of Survivor were literally defined by him and his family. His strategy in finding idol after idol changed the Survivor scene, creating a more aggressive meta as a whole. And while sure, he probably won't do well in the return, as his past 2 seasons he's been the first boot of his tribe, it will still provide entertaining villainous confessionals for however long he's been in the game for. Adding on to that, I brought back Kathy, and she would make a fantastic returnee. She was an individual several seasons before her time that was a de facto leader of the Road 2 tribe, and also was a part of the biggest flip the Survivor franchise had seen by season 4. Sure, if she returned, she would be one of the oldest contestants, but even on her original season, she was one of the oldest contestants, and still ran alliances in both seasons she's played. Next on my list was Philip Shepherd. And while yes, he's a bit of a lunatic, I think Philip actually has a fascinating transformation over his 2 seasons, from fight-inducing, feather-wielding goat to the leader figure of his alliance, if reports are to be believed. Like it or not, but Philip got a raw deal on Karud, with his 3 targets all being immune through idols or individual immunity, resulting in him getting voted out. I'd be interested to see in a Philip Shepherd 3.0, and kinda makes up for the fact there is no Coach or Debbie on the cast. When you think of female villains, one of the first individuals I think of is PG, that even in spite of a poor Cambodia showing, does have an incredible legacy in Survivor China. Pre-merge, she pulled off a very underrated strategic move in throwing a challenge to eliminate the leader of the opposing tribe, Aaron, during a tribe shuffle. Then at the merge, through underdog immunity wins, or just barely scraping by votes, she managed to be the last standing of her alliance. Then we have to consider the next individual, David Wright, and if we're going for a literal definition, should have been on season 34, as Jeff introduced fire making just after his season to allow bigger threats to reach the end. I really like David. He was someone who was well spoken in regards to the game or his social anxiety, and very inspiring. In MVGX, he was the leader of his alliance that beguiled the opposing alliance from the final 9 and on, and even made a fake idol, which Jay fell hook, line and sinker for. Imagine after a hard day of work, you go to a restaurant and order a pizza, only for the waiter to give you one of your 5 slices. You'd be pretty bummed, right? Well, much like that cheesy goodness, only roughly 20% of people watching this channel are subscribed. Are you subscribed? I'm trying to achieve 1,000 subscribers before 2023, and by just clicking that button you can get me one step closer. Nonetheless, let's get back into the video. One word, Corinne. Boom. I added her. If the word chaos could be attributed to one person, it would be her. In Gabon, she was one of the most influential people towards the season being a wholehearted train wreck. Even when voted out, her jury reactions were incredible, and stole the show at the final tribal with one of the most iconic speeches which destroyed Sugar. In Karamoan, she didn't last as long, but still had a fun dynamic with Malcolm, and in particular Michael Snow, resulting in hopefully an entertaining return. A pretty forgotten name is Lex, but still is in the community, and I think would be a dark horse on the return. On Africa, he literally got screwed out of the win. There's no other way around it. In spite of getting the question correct, he was marked down. In All Stars, he further proved he was a strategic player that ran a strong alliance before honouring his friendship with Rob, and well, we know the rest. Lex puts up pretty strong games, and I feel he can produce another on the return. We covered Corinne just beforehand, and now it's time to move on to her amazing race partner Eliza, who I also added. Eliza competed in Vanuatu and was part of the all-female alliance that picked off the men before keeping Chris self-imploding and let Chris get to the end, thus winning the game. When you consider the fact she can win immunities, keep within the numbers, and also entertainment-wise has some extremely iconic lines, it's a recipe for success. Now, from someone who made a bad strategic move to someone that has made several bad strategic moves in Penner. Not to say Penner is always bad at the strategic game, but he made a flip which caused the entire game to hate him, and in the Philippines he did vote Abby, which screwed over his entire alliance and their numbers. But some all-star seasons are regarded as too game-body, and Penry allows for comedic relief. He is always funny with endless bags of quip, so I gave him a punt. Finally, I added Monica Culpepper, who after an underwhelming One World appearance made a complete 180 and showed off an impressive array of skills in Blood vs. Water. In spite of her husband Brad blowing up his position at seemingly every opportunity, Monica was playing under the radar and even received idle clues for her troubles. She was in constant swing positions, won challenges, and held her own against tough final tribal competition. Our final male slot I picked was Spencer Bledsoe. The man has such an interesting survivor arc, from someone who was insulted by Jeff, told he had 0% chance to win, and then proved to be a massive fan favourite. Over the span of his 2 seasons, he proved he could survive while in the majority or minority, and had to compete with some of the best survivor players of all time in Sarah Lucina, Tony Vlachos, and Jeremy Collins, just to name a few. He's shown he can make it to the end before. All he needs to do now is win. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, and who knows, even subscribe. Let me know down below what cast you would have made with my criteria. As you all know by now, I read every comment, so I'll be excited to see what you've swapped around. Nonetheless, have a great day, and peace!